This is Charter Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance in San Luis Obispo. Today we are joined by Adam Hill. He is a member of the Board of Supervisors in this beautiful county, which is playing its part in trying to address the drought facing the entire state. Right. I know that you represent significant portions of the city of San Luis Obispo, which has been meeting its targets, actually beating its targets for water conservation. Yeah. That's a common story up and down the Central Coast. Why?
I think most of the cities and towns, I know the county has been meeting its targets too, and I think that's the case.
What is it about this region? I mean, the whole state's doing a pretty decent job, but still, I mean, this region really is playing its part.
A combination of the sort of conservation ethic. I think people get it, and they're willing to do their part. And also a little bit of fear, which is it hasn't rained for so long, and things are so dry and hot that I believe that people are somewhat scared about the future of being able just to turn on their water.
But who would have thunk that a nuclear power plant could provide at least part of the solution to the water crisis? Mm-hmm. Explain for us how Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant may be part of the solution.
Yeah, so they have a plant, they have a desal plant, a very large one. In fact, until the Poseidon one comes on, it's the largest one in the West.
And Poseidon, of course, is the Carlsbad plant in San Diego County, which will be the largest in the Western Hemisphere.
Exactly.
And so that's exciting indeed. Yeah. So tell us about the Diablo plant.
So they've had theirs running as long as the nuclear power plant's been running, because it provides the on-site water. They don't use any wells or anything else to provide water for their on-site needs for all the employees and all the things that go on at the plant.
So they're completely self-sufficient. Of course,
completely self-sufficient.
For our viewers that may not know, Diablo Canyon is literally on the Pacific Ocean.
Exactly.
And so they bring in ocean water.
They bring in ocean water and they desalinate it and they treat it and they pump it through their plant, and they then put it back into the ocean while it's being released with other water that essentially
they haven't cooling.
Right. Yeah. And so they want to be able to. I'm certain that I'm not the first person to ask him if we could figure out a way to use their water, because their plant can make 1.5 million gallons of fresh water a day.
A day.
A day.
Okay.
They only use about 35 to 40% of it. So
are they only making, let's say, 400,000?
Sure, that's all they need to, but they're permitted to do the full capacity under their license.
When you say permitted, you mean
legally
permitted.
Legally permitted.
It's not like they're permitted. They can do it.
They can do it.
Yeah.
But they don't need that much. So I had their chief executive that runs the plant here, the chief nuclear officer, come over to my house last year, just around Christmas for lunch, and say, is there?
And mind you represent
Diablo Canyon.
Yeah, I don't know if there are any voters at Diablo Canyon, but you represent.
Well,
it's in your district.
Yeah. There's a lot of people who work there.
Of course.
So we had a great conversation. We started to talk about how it worked, and then when they were ready to actually start to have a public conversation about it, it came before my board. My board was excited. They said, "Okay, go off and start to chart what it would look like." So myself and Supervisor Compton, who's the other South County supervisor, we were tasked with sort of working with our drought task force team.
Got it. Yes.
And PG&E to come up with what this would look like.
So what does it look like?
So what it looks like now in the first phase, at least, would be that we would be able to buy a significant amount of that water and pipe it to the South County Lopez system.
And let's explain that very specifically. Right. So as I understand it, there is a pipe from the outside of Diablo Canyon to the rest of the county.
To the rest of the South County.
Perfect. Yeah. But you need to get from Diablo Canyon to that pipe outside its fence.
Right, exactly.
And how will you do that?
So the distance between where the Lopez Lake Reservoir, which feeds the South County, is outside the plant, and where the plant is about 7 miles inside the plant. Meaning it would not disrupt anybody's neighborhood or any traffic. Okay. It would actually, we would coincide it with something that PG&E was already going to do to repair that road. So we would rip it up, trench it, put the pipe in, and they would seal it and go over it, and we would be able to connect to their system.
Is 7 miles a long distance, for this type of project? I don't have a sense.
Yeah, not really. Okay. Not really. I mean, we have many more miles going from outside the gate to the reservoir.
And what about the cost for those 7 miles of
Well, that's
piping?
the next thing that's going to come back to us in January, which is,
Okay.
everybody's sharpening their pencils
Of
to get a
course.
sense of two things. How much exactly the piping part of the project will cost. We estimate somewhere between $1 million a mile and a little bit upwards, maybe as much as, depending on what happens, as much as $10 to $12 million it could be.
Okay.
But this would be, this would be putting in infrastructure that could be used for a long time.
And in the scheme of things, is $10 million a lot of money for what you're going to get?
I don't think so. I mean, I think in terms of, at first the amount of water might just be more, well, we're not getting any water right now. The reservoir keeps going down because there has been no precipitation. The aquifers throughout the South County, just as throughout the rest of the state, are stressed.
Right.
The cities don't want to pull off of them, so they've been pulling out of the reservoir.
Right.
At some point, it's going to drop below a safe ability to keep pulling at that amount. So this will provide water that doesn't currently exist that will help offset that pressure. Then we think we can help work with the plant to upgrade their plant a little bit, get more water, and also get that pumped into the South County.
Now, how long would it take to build those 7 miles of pipes and get them online, in a perfect world?
Much more quickly than probably any other project because of the fact that things are already existing. The plant already exists.
Right.
Their permits already exist. We're going to be applying for this under drought emergency, which is really what it is. We have a drought emergency throughout our county, throughout our state, and we need to be able to provide this water that will give us a supply that we don't currently have.
I'm wondering, given the voters' decision to pass bonds for projects such as desal in November 2014, 7.545
Prop 1,
billion, Prop 1, could the county, Diablo, whomever it is, access some of those
We
funds?
are currently applying. We have accessed on another project.
Okay.
We had our Sacramento lobbyists in town a few
Nice.
weeks ago, and we made it clear that, and I've talked to Senate Majority Leader Monning about this.
Right.
We gave him a brief of the project.
Monning, who actually represents this community.
This
So it
community.
helps that he's a majority leader.
Does help, so
Right.
we hope to be able to call on him for help once we get a chance to, we gave him a brief on the project. We want to sit down and talk a little bit more about it. The great thing about this project is that on the face of it, it's pretty much the project as it is all the way through. There's an existing plant. There's existing permits for this plant. There's existing environmental documents already. So this is just being able to put pipe in the ground on their land and allow water to flow into the South County where it's not flowing now.
I want to ask about cost. As we know, in Carlsbad, San Diego County, the cost is more than receiving water from other sources, but it's part of a grand solution. And so the folks in San Diego County are pleased to have that resource.
Sure.
What would the cost be for this water? Do you need, part of the reason it's so expensive is the energy.
Right.
But I guess Diablo has its unique energy solution.
They do. It would be powered from the plant.
The nuclear plant.
The nuclear plant, which does not give off greenhouse gas emissions. So that's an excellent way to be in line with the state's climate change policies, which we want to do, and so does PG&E.
And so is it less expensive?
Yep.
So
They have a certain amount of power that they're allowed to use to power their stuff on the plant site that's been approved through the PUC, and so it's not at this sort of public rate. And that same source of power at that same price is what they would use to continue to power the desal, but even at a higher level. And they have to sell us the water. They can't just give us the water, but it will be significantly less. We started by working out a deal with them to be able to fill up our fire trucks. So our CAL FIRE tanker trucks can go to Diablo and fill their tanks with desalinated water. Today, right. And we did that first because that's the obvious need, is we want to have enough water for fire suppression. And once we worked out that led to, well, I think we could figure out a way to get drinking water too.
This is really an innovative solution, and one that I would hope comes online soon. I mean, I think we can do it. Brad Pomerance, but
I think in 2016 it's going to happen.
It's amazing.
We have a deadline for May to actually start getting a sort of golden spike, get the pipe in the ground moment. So,
his name is Adam Hill. He is a member of the Board of Supervisors in San Luis Obispo County. My name is Brad Pomerance, and this is Charter Local Edition.